Hi students, welcome to Art Appreciation. Mr. Giray here once again. For today's discussion, we're gonna talk about the overview of art history. This is adapted from Kathleen Lynn Cook 2017. Before anything else, let me tell you a story. Let's have this protagonist, Alex. At first, Alex thought art history was a boring thing. Just like you, you're thinking maybe that art history is boring because we've got a lot of things to read, long lists of artists and movements, and they felt like just random facts to be memorized. But everything changed when Alex came across with a painting. This painting had the swirling colors and glowing stars. And as he read more, he learned that the artist struggled mentally and painted this while living in an asylum. The painting was more than just a beautiful night scene. It was also a reflection of the artist's emotional struggles. Do you know what painting is that? It's no other than The Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. That's when Alex realized that art wasn't just about pretty pictures or old paintings. It was a way for artists to communicate feelings, ideas, and even struggles that word couldn't express. Here, Alex understood that art wasn't just memorizing facts. It was about discovering the power of human creativity and how it shapes our understanding, our understanding of the human selves and the world. Now, we're going to try to delve deeper about the different movements and the happenings in relation to art. Let's start off with the prehistoric era, 40,000 BC to 2300 BC. This is basically humanity's first creative flex. Long before the age of Instagram galleries and even the written language. Okay, you see this? Forget about all these fancy materials you use in art, paint brushes, canvas, whatever it is. Our ancestors, early humans, grabbed whatever they could. Name it: clay, rocks, stone, sticks, animal fat, of course, blood, all these things. They use them to create images on cave walls. For some, you may see random doodles, but no, these told stories, these recorded hunts. Or maybe they also tried to work on some rituals. Words, written language, no problem at all. Art was their way of communicating. Art was making sense of their world, of how they interact with each other. And this proves something, that creativity has been in our DNA since the very beginning. Now, Mesopotamia, 9000 BCE to 300 BCE. One of the world's largest civilizations, one of the first great civilizations then. Now, it is in what we call the modern day Iraq. The art was all about power, was all about authority, mostly carved into stone reliefs, as you could see here on this picture. These detailed carvings often showed kings, maybe hunting or battling, and in this picture, flexing their dominance. You'd see the body of a lion and the face of a king, the head of a king. Well, isn't this self-promotion? It is. Animals like lions and horses, they represent dominance. They represent authority, and that's why Mesopotamians used it. Well, Mesopotamian art wasn't just for decoration. It was a way for them to showcase superiority, authority, and the strength of their rulers. So, Egyptian art, 5500 to 500 BCE. How do I say this? It wasn't just about looking cool. Everything they made, coming from paintings to sculptures to jewelry, all of them had serious meaning behind it. It's not just about, to decorate something, to show off. They were telling stories. Egyptians are known for that. They told stories with symbols. Even in writing, one of the origins of the written language is the hieroglyphics, the Egyptian writing. And it's part of their artwork. Most of actually what we have left comes from tombs and monuments because they wanted to be remembered forever, like Ozymandias. Search that. An Egyptian ruler. There's a poem coming from Percy Bysshe Shelley. Read that as well. It really would evoke some sort of existential, fleeting kind of existential understanding. Maybe you could relate there as well. In this case, pharaohs and other rulers wanted to be somewhat not ephemeral. They were all about making sure that their legacy stuck around for thousands of years. And I think they became successful because we saw some tombs, and until now we could learn coming from them. All right, now let's talk about the Greek art. 1000 BCE to 250 BCE. I can say that the Greeks were the OG influencers when it came to sculpture and architecture. Technically, if you ponder about it, they set the standard for everything that followed. Imagine their grand monuments and stunning sculptures like the Parthenon and maybe some iconic statues. You see this here on the picture? But the Greeks weren't just about big buildings. They were also top-notch craftsmen. They made everyday stuff beautifully painted, like the pots here. It tells a story. And one thing is for sure, when it comes to human forms, they took realistic proportions. Well, they nailed the proportions, the details, and they tried to make everything look real. They really leveled things up. Now we've got Rome. Roman art, 509 BCE to 400 CE. They said Greek conquered and the Roman conquered Greek, but in terms of culture and the arts, the Roman conquered the Greek, because here's the thing. The Romans borrowed, or I should say integrated, the best bits coming from the Greek, let it be sculpture and architecture and painting. The Romans made them their own. They were masters of building grand structures like temples and aqueducts. They're detailed as well. They, just like the Greeks, they showed real people instead of just gods or heroes. There's a counterpart for every every Greek god in Roman gods, Roman mythology. And even though they were all about power and glory, still, just like the Greek, mythology played a big part. So again, the Romans just add their own flavor, and it couldn't be possible without the Greek influence as well. Now, Middle Ages, 200 to 1400 CE, coming from the term itself, middle. So this is the in-between time. This is the age between classical and modern eras. During this period, Christianity was spreading like wildfire across Europe. And you could easily see that influence in the art and architecture. Most of the artwork from this time was religious, with churches, with cathedrals, with paintings, and often majorly they're focused on stories from the Bible. They were using that to reflect about the divine and show faith. And in terms of art, yes, that's how people saw art, more of a way to express the worshipping of the divine. We've got medieval. This refers to the art created over the span of 1,000 years during the Middle Ages. It's a very huge stretch of time, huh? Well, art back then was largely varied. They were using all kinds of materials and techniques. You'd see some illuminated manuscripts. What's that? It's fancy handwritten books with gold in color. Then they've got something like stained glass windows. All started there. Even metal works, mosaics, and textiles. They're all became very important forms of expression. And again, art was deeply tied to religion and everyday life of people across Europe. Byzantine, 400 to 1450 CE. The Byzantine era was like the golden age of the holy art. Christianity was again spreading like wildfire. See that here on these paintings. Instead of painting portraits or landscapes, artists told biblical tales. They told it through vibrant mosaics, symbolic paintings, and statues. And this was used to make people closer to God. Illuminated manuscripts were there still. And what else? And the main thing here is art wasn't just about how things look, it was about making them feel the divine presence. Artists there were religious, Romanesque, 500 to 980 CE. The Romanesque period was all about going big with decoration. You see it here on the picture. Think of massive stone churches. Think of grand arches and walls bursting with some people and intricate designs, some figures. Well, architecture wasn't just about function, it was about to showcase, once again, the power of the divine, of the supernatural. Manuscripts and embroidery followed with pages and fabrics drenched in, how do I say this, some rich colors and wonderful and delicate patterns. The goal here was to make things detail oriented. They were filling spaces, but they made sure that, things were for the greater glory of God. Now, Gothic, 1200 to 1400 CE. Gothic art emerged in France. This was a bold evolution from the previous style, the Romanesque, and was all about reaching for the sky. You'd see monuments, as you can see here on the picture. It was all about reaching for the sky. Monumental cathedrals rose like giants, and then they're spiky, and there were intricate details, somehow seemed like defying gravity. These architectural wonders were paired to, as you see here on the picture, above some ornamental luminous glass windows. And a lot of times the themes surround on varied colors, or something like kaleidoscopic. Now, Renaissance, 1400 to 1600. This is the period of rebirth. This was, you know, the time where artists look back at the ancient world for inspiration, but mixed it with cool new science knowledge. Actually, this reminds me of the term called the Renaissance man. If you're a Renaissance man, you're not just knowledgeable or skillful in one subject, a set of subjects. For example, you're not just good in engineering, you also are good in psychology, mathematics, and the arts, and so on, and trying to make things holistic. They're really generalists. And, you know, they figured out linear perspective. So their art started looking more real. Yes, you're peeking somehow to a window of another person, another house, I should say. They also became very good at understanding how the human body works. Reminds us of the Vitruvian man. Search that. And these figures look way more lifelike. Well, we can say that during this era, it changed how we see art forever. We've got some things here still. Yeah, these are prominent paintings during the Renaissance era. We've got some big names here like Michelangelo, Da Vinci, and Raphael. We've got Botticelli. They're basically the rock stars of their time. During this time, painting, fresco, and sculpture were the go-to forms of expression. Most of the art was tied to church, and you'd see a lot of religious themes. But mythology didn't die. They were still they're still in. They somehow made their way, and you know, the people during the Renaissance era, the artists more particularly, were obsessed with capturing raw beauty, and there should be this kind of essence of nature, so that they could show the world exactly what they saw in all its glory. Now we've got the Baroque period. This is simply just all about drama. And there's religious theme through movement and emotion, but you'll see that art is packed with movement. You see this fresco, and they use light and shadow to make you feel this kind of intensity. So you could somehow experience the story. Very dramatic for Baroque. Let me just continue. The Baroque period was also very notorious in terms of showing off wealth and status. You'd see here on the painting, you'd know that they're elite people. If you were rich and you wanted a portrait, if you're rich, I wanted a portrait that should be with these glamorous velvet robes, pearl necklaces, very how do I say this? Big hats that catch attention of people, and some sort of laces. There should be gold and something that would make people think that we are shining and shimmering. Symbolism also played a big role here. Books represented knowledge. Dogs symbolized loyalty. Where's my dog? And clocks reminded viewers about the passage of time. You can think more of symbolism and something of metaphor and analogies. Baroque period is rich on that. Next is Mannerism. Mannerism took Renaissance and Baroque traditions together, but gave them a twist. Literally, I tell you, artists painted figures with long limbs, stretched bodies you would see here on the painting. Somehow slightly off proportion. The neck so elongated here. And the limbs, and also the clothing. The poses often look unnatural, almost unnatural in the style, but it's somehow they were putting that forward to make it more expressive and full of movement. Now, Rococo. Rococo took the Baroque's drama and made it lighter and fancier and even more decorative. It's all about luxury as well, and elegance and over-the-top beauty. But again, interiors in terms of this were all filled with somehow in gold accents. You will see that here, some pastel colors and intricate designs, frescoes also with delicate details, something like very fitting for a king. This is a period of royal luxury, at least in the French circumstances. Now, neoclassicism. Neoclassical art, 1700 to 1800, was like hitting the reset button. Why did I say so? They deviated from the luxury and glamour. Now it's inspired by ancient Greece and Rome. And this brings back the balance and simplicity. Artists ditched the over the top look of Baroque and Rococo. Instead, you know what they did? They focused on some clean lines and strong figures with some serious themes. Paintings look like history in motion, just like here on the picture. And it's about bringing back the classic beauty to life. Stay still. Some movements. We've got here Romanticism. It marks the period in which artists sought to remove themselves from social and political influences. This is more about feeling. Here, romantics, more about feeling rather than logic. Artists wanted to escape society and focus on nature, on imagination, on deep, authentic emotions. They're dramatic, with wild landscapes, with some stormy skies, with some powerful scenes. But instead of having some strict rules, should be like this and that, they embrace instead passion and mystery. It's more about what they felt, and that's being romantic. Realism, on the other hand, is its opposite. On this, the artist just keep things real, right? From the term itself. No fantasy, no drama, no exaggeration. Just say or tell the raw life as it is. Artists moved away from emotion and focused on everyday scenes. Maybe they painted something like farmers working, and then people in the streets, some sort of struggles in ordinary life. No heroes, no like kings. Was art told the truth, no matter how simple or harsh it is. We've got now Impressionism, 1886 to 1906. Impressionism was all about capturing a moment, like a snapshot in paint. So this is more of using some vivid colors and loose, quick brush strokes. They try to incorporate some light here. The subject were everyday, something like you could see in an everyday life, quiet gardens, cafes. But you would see that that's more about the fleeting moment. Here are some other examples. Search about Claude Monet. This is the prominent figure in this kind of movement. Claude Monet, he painted a scene of a garden with some brush strokes, loose brush strokes, but if you zoom out, yes, it comes to life, comes clear. Last but not least, no. Okay, this is post-impressionism. Vincent van Gogh is the key figure here. After impressionism, that's what it means. Well, While it's still focused on real life subjects, there's something like a touch here, and they got experimental with shapes, with geometric forms. It was less about capturing it exactly as it is, but more of integrating as well some emotions through color and form. Here's another example. You would see there's some sort of digging deeper into how artists felt about the scene. See some intensification in terms of color, of line, of perspectives. All right, that's the end. But here's the thing. Let me end with the quotation coming from John Dahlberg Acton. He says, "History is not a burden on the memory, but an illumination of the soul." For students, history may seem a boring one, but actually, this is, a key to understanding where we came from, why things are the way they are now. It shapes everything coming from, let's say, culture, politics, art. Without history, we lose connection to our soul, to our past, to ourselves. And when we talked about art history, the same thing is what we should understand. This is not just something about remembering the styles or the people or the movements. It's about understanding and the deeper meanings behind the happenings of the past and their works, their movements. Art history illuminates our understanding of the past. Remember that. Because after all, when you get to take it with all seriousness you've got, art history helps you to appreciate how far, you know, you've come and how far you might go. Good luck.